show. There was even a secret base in Anvil Square that was an exact replica of Aaron's father's room. It was actually insane. And then in Aaron's rewards for his cosmetics, you could earn the A World Without Walls loading screen, and this was almost an exact copy of the Season 1 Attack on Titan poster. It was such a clean reference, especially if you're an Attack on Titan fan. And then in Chapter 4, Season 3, Fortnite did not hold back with the Futurama collab. It was literally a one-for-one recreation to Futurama's iconic Planet Express intro. It's so spot on, you would think that Epic just took it straight from the show. And in-game, they kept the references going, because you could actually spot the Planet Express crashed right into a massive billboard in Mega City. And then there's Bender. When you would interact with a vending machine, he would ask, "Didn't I have a baby with you once?" Which is a hilarious nod to one of his classic lines to the show. Epic just continues to nail these collab references over and over again. Then in Chapter 4, Season 4, we broke into more vaults than we could count. Over in the Eclipse Estate vault, though, Epic snuck in some detail behind some unbreakable glass. One of them being a golden Midas hand, just sitting there like a trophy. When Kato Thorne stepped out of his time machine, players noticed a specific detail, 3/25/2020, displayed on it. And that is not some random date. That is the exact date that Oro first was in the item shop, which is a key detail because when Kato walks out of the time machine, he's actually holding Oro's head. Then we finally got Chapter 4 Season OG. When Season OG dropped, Fortnite hit us with the Invincible collab, and that was already huge. But this Easter egg isn't about a collab in-game, but rather the Easter egg that was in the show itself. In one of the episodes, you can actually spot the Dragon's Breath sniper pulled straight out of Fortnite. That was a really cool crossover, and I wasn't expecting it when I was watching the show. And then in the OG Battle Pass, we got the flashback breakdown emote. It combined 8 original emotes into one. You had Ride the Pony, Work It Out, Break It, Groove Jam, The Worm, Breakdown, Disco Fever, and even Glitter. This was the perfect emote for nostalgia. And then the Re-OG music pack is actually a massive W for music fans because Epic brought in Metro Boomin, the producer behind Future, The Weeknd, and Drake, and gave the season's soundtrack a whole different vibe. In Chapter 5, Season 1, we finally got the Family Guy collaboration after years of Easter eggs and teasers. But what it came with was insane. First, the punching bag emote. Pure gold. Every time you use it, it cycles through a different Peter Griffin laugh straight from the show. Epic also made sure to include the Peter Copter, which fans instantly recognized, and they even went as far as to add the Butt Scratcher pickaxe. Then there was Boss Peter's death animation, the direct reference to how he collapses on the sidewalk in the show. It's easily one of Fortnite's most detailed collabs. Also in Chapter 5, we got one of the most viral clips of the season. A player's car somehow got wedged between 2 trees and it just got stuck. They posted the clip to Reddit and it absolutely blew up. A few weeks later, Epic decided to lean into the meme and actually added a permanent car stuck between those 2 exact trees. One more hilarious Easter egg this season is there was a weird deer-shaped bush outside of Grand Glacier with a chest hidden behind it, and when players asked Epic about it, they responded with a pain in the butt. All right. But then in Chapter 5, Season 2, the Avatar collab had come with some really cool references to the show. Before Aang was officially released, you could actually find an iceberg with a glowing orb in the middle showing him frozen inside. This is exactly how he's first introduced into the show. And of course, we got the My Cabbages emote, except in Fortnite's version, the poor guy actually manages to save his cabbages. Chapter 5, Season 3, Epic keeps getting better and better with the Easter eggs. They bring in some amazing collaborations to the game. In this season, we had tons of Fallout Easter eggs throughout the Battle Pass and even in the game itself. We got Nuka-Cola as a healing item, and Fallout fans might have noticed that every time you used one of them, you actually got 1 gold in your pocket because, of course, the bottle cap was the currency in Fallout. And then over at the Nitrodome, you could actually spot iguanas on a stick, which is a food straight from Fallout. And even the Battle Pass went all out with the Fallout wrap that had an actual kill counter built into it. If you look closely at the T60 power armor loading screen, they snuck in the Zapatron there, and Epic really went hard with all the details during the season. There were some random piles of lemons scattered around the map, and at first it felt a little random, but if you interacted with them, they actually gave you XP. And it was a sneaky Easter egg teasing the Pirates of the Caribbean collab, which happened later that season, since lemons were historically used to help sailors prevent scurvy. And it doesn't stop, because in Chapter 5, Season 4, Doomstat and Castle Doom were 2 of the biggest POIs filled with the most amount of Easter eggs we've ever seen. They went all out for the Marvel fans. First, there was a basement in Doomstat that belonged to a die-hard Iron Man fan. You'd find old Iron Man items scattered around on an old TV playing Marvel vs. Capcom, which was a nod to the classic game. And then when you fought Doom in his castle, his diving move was exactly the same animation from the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 game. And speaking of Doom, we have to talk about all the hidden Easter eggs in his castle. It was packed full of trophies from fallen Marvel heroes. Namor's horn, the thing's entire body turned into Doom's throne, Doctor Strange's broken necklace, Mr. Fantastic literally folded into a bouncy ball, Silver Surfer's iconic board snapped in half and destroyed, and then Sue Storm, but it's just a chair. However, since she's Invisible Woman, it's actually implied that she's sitting in there watching you while you stare into her cage, which is actually insane. And then outside the castle, you have a little ice cream shop called Victor Von Scoop. And if you watch the news on the TVs in the raft, it actually explains that Doom gained the people's trust by handing out free ice cream. And once he had the trust, he took over the island. Was it really that easy? And the last thing I'm going to mention about this season is the direct reference that Peely has with his emote Peelverine Remembers, referencing the iconic Wolverine meme where he's just lying in bed looking at a photo frame. And then we got Chapter 2 Remix, and that had a ton of Easter eggs with all the collabs that it included. One of my personal favorites was the RG minigun. Not only did you get this from the Spaghetti Grotto, but the fact that it displayed and played the entirety of Rap God as you shot it was incredible. Risky Reels also returned with Chapter 2 Remix, and it had a camera that you could actually interact with. And when you did, it would replay the Snoop Dogg and Ice Spice live Fortnite events. It was a sick detail added for the players who missed the event, and players might also remember how insane the cars were this season with their hydraulics. But a little detail you might have missed is if you stayed idle in Snoop Dogg's lowrider and had the radio turned on in the car, it would just start bouncing on its own. And for the current chapter of Fortnite, there is still so much to unpack because in Chapter 6, Season 1, Epic added Floodgate as a POI. And when you go to check it out, there's a basketball at the top of a zip line with a basketball hoop at the bottom. And this is a reference to the world record for the highest basketball shot ever recorded, which just happened to be from a dam. Over near Demon's Dojo, players found an underground maze that actually hid a secret gnome hideout. Then across the map around Mass Meadows, there was a smiley face made entirely out of chests and slurp barrels. As for show references, fans spotted a random toilet and umbrella, which felt like a nod to Rick and Morty. There's a lot of small, fun Easter eggs throughout this season, but it gets a little bit spicier in Chapter 6 Season 2, because that's when we got the Mortal Kombat collab. If you don't take damage while using the Sub-Zero gloves and you eliminate an opponent, you get a flawless victory voice line, which sounds like it's straight from the game. This is one of the coolest Easter eggs they've ever added. And then the frozen treat cart emote was the exact same move Sub-Zero does in Mortal Kombat 11 when he pulls out his ice cream cart. Another small detail from Season 2 was in Lone Wolf Mansion. Fletcher King actually had paintings of himself all over the mansion, but if you look closely, he's actually recreating the iconic Leonardo DiCaprio poses from the Titanic to the Great Gatsby. And then probably the most known Easter egg from the season was the hot tub with the max capacity 3 sign. They weren't kidding. If you were in a squad and the fourth person jumped in, the whole squad was shot up in the air, and most of you, if not all of you, were dying to fall damage. And now we're moving on to the Star Wars season Galactic Battle. Although I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, Epic added a ton of Easter eggs in the movies and the shows during the season that Star Wars fans can really appreciate. Starting with the trailer. Marshmallow just casually blending in with the stormtroopers like he's been there the whole time. And I'm still wondering what secret Marshmallow knows about Fortnite, because he has the most amount of skins, edit styles, and he's like always in the trailers. But now for Star Wars specific Easter eggs, Evie's Battle Pass style has Easter eggs as well. When you equipped her Jedi style, she's rocking the signature Padawan braid just like Obi-Wan and Anakin. But if you swap her over to the Sith style, the braid's gone. The braid is obviously tied to Jedi training. There was also a lot of questions about those busted up llamas around the map. You'd be able to jump into them and they would heal you, which was cool, but this was actually a reference from The Empire Strikes Back, where Luke had to survive on the Hoth planet, and he hides inside a tauntaun for warmth. Hopefully I said that right. Kind of gross if you know the reference. And then now for the current season. Chapter